The Gospel of Jesus Christ according to St. John. JN 6:22-29. After Jesus had fed 5,000 people to their fill, his disciples saw him walking on the Sea of Galilee. The next day, the crowd that had remained on the other side of the sea saw that there had been only one boat there and that Jesus had not gone into the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. However, other boats came from Tiberias near the place where they had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. So when the crowd saw that neither Jesus nor his disciples were there, they themselves got into boats and went to Capernaum looking for Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you are looking for me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him, God the Father has set his seal." Then they said to him, "What must we do to perform the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in the one he has sent." UNSPOILING food, seeking to love, not just to receive. There was once a little boy who lived in a poor family on the outskirts of a city. Every morning, he would wake up very early to help his mother sell bread by the roadside. Each loaf of bread was a bundle of hope wrapped up by his parents, hoping to gather enough money to send him to school. One day, during a charity bread distribution at church, the boy quietly received a hot loaf of bread, looked up at the man handing it out, a gentle old priest with a warm smile, and asked, "Father, who is God that he gives me bread like this every day?" The priest bent down, gently patted the boy's head, and replied, "God doesn't just give you bread. God is the bread, the one who can feed your soul." That story may sound simple, but it holds a deep truth. God doesn't come merely to satisfy our temporary needs. He comes to be our friend, to become the very source of life for each of us. And today's Gospel, JN 6:22-29, marks the beginning of that inward journey. I seeking God, but why? The Gospel says, they got into boats and went to Capernaum in search of Jesus. They had witnessed the miracle of the loaves. They were full, content, and pleased. But what troubled Jesus was not that they were seeking him. It was the reason they were seeking him. You are looking for me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. It might sound a bit harsh, but in truth, it's a gentle invitation to examine our hearts. Why do we come to Jesus? Out of love, or out of self-interest? Do we long for eternal life, or merely hope for a blessing for today? We easily forget that the most beautiful part of faith is not in receiving, but in being loved, and in learning to love in return. The story of the blind man on the old bridge. There was a lonely man, blind since childhood, who sat every day by a small bridge in the village. The villagers were used to seeing him smiling, his hand stretched out for bread from passers-by. But to everyone who gave him bread, he always said the same thing: "I cannot see your face, but I believe you are a good person." One stormy day, A schoolboy quietly slipped a loaf of bread into the old man's hand. The old man said his usual line, but this time the boy asked, "Sir, how do you know I'm a good person?" The blind man smiled, "Because you stopped." He didn't need to see a person to believe in their goodness. Just a small gesture, a pause, was enough to reveal something deeper, the heart. In the same way, Jesus invites the crowd, and us, not to stop at bread, but to see the sign. The miracle of mercy, the sign of saving love. 3. Do not work for food that spoils, a healing wake-up call. Do not work for food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life. Jesus understood human needs: food, clothing, shelter, survival. He didn't deny these. But he gently pulled people away from the temporary and pointed them toward what is eternal. Like a tender yet firm father, he taught us to discern what truly matters. Remember the Samaritan woman at the well, Jn 4. She came to fetch water, as she did every day. But that day, Jesus told her, "Whoever drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst." A seemingly ordinary woman, but Jesus saw the deep thirst in her heart, and healed her by offering himself as living water. Dear friend, perhaps you too are coming to God with a specific need, illness, burden, brokenness, and that's not wrong. But let him go deeper, to the quiet places in your soul where you long for a love that won't abandon you, where you ache to know your worth, where you crave to live truly and freely. IV. What must we do when faith is no longer complicated? What must we do to perform the works of God? This is the eternal question of every believer. How can I please God? What rules must I follow? How good must I be? How perfect? And Jesus answers with utter simplicity. The work of God is this: to believe in the one he has sent. No long lists, no strict conditions, just believe. Believe, not as vague emotion. Believe, as a choice to place your hope in him. Believe, as a willingness to be loved by God, even when you haven't yet loved him enough. Like Peter, sinking in the storm, who did nothing but cry out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus took his hand, not waiting for strength or merit. Likewise, faith doesn't begin with human effort. It begins with God's mercy. You only need to allow yourself to be saved. Verses the story of the broken bowl. An old Zen master kept an earthen bowl, cracked and worn. When asked why he didn't replace it, he smiled and said, "Because I use it every day to remind myself I am still useful, even if I'm not perfect." Dear friend, we sometimes think that in order to believe in God or be loved by him, we must be whole, better, holier, more active. But God doesn't wait for your perfection. He comes to love you as you are. Even if you feel like just a broken bowl, he can still use you, and more than that, he loves you. V. Don't seek Jesus for a loaf of bread. Seek him for love. Saint John of the Cross once wrote, "At this moment, God is not pleased by how much you understand, but by how much you love." Jesus wants to meet you, not because you know a lot of theology or spend hours in prayer, but because you want to love him more. He doesn't need a theoretical faith. He needs a heart willing to live with him. For him. A new journey, returning to the food that lasts. Have you ever felt empty after a fleeting joy? Been praised, then felt hollow soon after? Achieved what you longed for, yet still felt incomplete? Those are signs you need a food that doesn't perish. Today's gospel, like a gentle breeze, reminds you there is one always ready to feed you with love, with himself. Come back, not just to a religion, but to a living relationship between you and Jesus. 8. A loving invitation, the final word. Dear friend, today Jesus is also looking at you, just as he once looked at the crowd. He sees your hunger, your desire to be loved, your longing for a true anchor in life. And he does not walk away. He stands there, inviting you not just to seek bread, but to seek him. The bread of life. The food that endures, is what the Son of Man will give you. He doesn't just speak, he gives. On the cross, in the Eucharist, in every moment you open your heart to him. You don't need to come to God with hands full. Just come with a sincere heart. And he will do the rest.